Let me call this meeting to order. This is the Ethics Commission meeting set for July 14th. Time is about 5:30 p.m. Call the meeting to order. Roll call. Mr. Hernandez? Here. Mr. Valcantu?
Present.
Mr. Belmontes?
Present, sir.
Mr. Elizondo?
Present.
And then Mr. Martinez?
Present.
And then we have no one else here? Oh, Mr. Saba Zapata?
Present.
Okay, who are we missing?
Missing Miss Alexander and, that's it. And who else? Okay.
That's it, right?
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Okay. We have a quorum. Okay, did anybody sign up for public comment? So, Mr. Patiño, you've signed up for public comment?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Castelloni, that's appropriate under the circumstances, being that he's a respondent?
I mean, I suppose that he could speak during public comment, if he would like to reserve his comments.
It's Hector Lee, that's my dad.
Oh, I see, so Mr. Patiño Senior, okay, okay, all right. Come on up, Mr.
Oh,
Patiño.
okay.
I wasn't on, sorry.
I'm just here to support my son,
Okay.
Hector Lee. My name is Hector Manuel Patiño. I've been a pastor for about almost 37 years in Laredo. Worked in the barrios for a lot of people, a lot of families, desperate families. We built several churches in Laredo, in Nuevo Laredo. We got 2 churches in Nuevo Laredo. Hector Lee helps me with one of the churches in Nuevo Laredo. Ever since he came back from the university, he graduated with a master's degree in theology from the Assemblies of God University. He asked me if he could help me as a pastor. I really didn't want him to go and help me in Nuevo Laredo because of the dangers over there. But he insisted, and he's still there. There's not that many people going to church now. There's about 40, 50 people that go to church on Sundays over there. But all I wanted to say that sometimes we make mistakes, and we pay dearly for those mistakes. We all make mistakes. I know my son is not perfect, as none of us are. We all make mistakes. And I would just like to ask, if he made a mistake, and if he is guilty of something, as a father, maybe I'm just saying, please be considerate of that. When he was 16 years old, he had an accident where he lost his left arm. He was coming from Christian Junior High School, middle school, and my 3 sons, or it was Hector Lee, Delilah, and Robert. Robert has already passed away. They were all hit by the train. Hector lost his left arm trying to save his little sister. When I went through that experience, I wish the whole world would be there for us and help us, but the world kept on going. Everybody kept on, even sometimes like without noticing what had happened to our family. He was only 16. He's my oldest. I thought it would hinder him from being all he could, when he grew older. I watched him put his clothes on with one arm, tie his shoes with one arm, everything with one arm.
Mr. Patino, just to let you know, you had a 3-minute time
Yes, sir.
limitation.
Thank you.
It's just about done, if you can just wrap up, please.
I'm going to wrap it up.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So that's why I'm here. I love my son, and I wish that you all would be considerate with him. And I appreciate the time that you've given me to speak on his behalf or say a few words. And I always pray for my city, my country, and for all of you. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Pastor.
Mr. Patino. Yeah, that was the only person that signed up for public comment. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the June 9th.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the minutes of June 9th, 2021. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Morales has a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Okay, next item is item 4A, evidentiary hearing with possible action following a report made pursuant to section 2.11 of the City of Laredo's Code of Ethics pertaining to the actions of Hector Lee Patiño in his representation of North America Industrial Park, including the applicable possible violations of Division 5 lobbyists of the City of Laredo Code of Ethics. Sebastian?
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Alisa Castion here for the City of Laredo, along with Mr. Rene Benavides, to represent you all as the Ethics Compliance Officer in this case. We do have, we do know that you were provided with evidence, with the documents that are relevant to this case. I believe they're all in the binder before you. Of particular importance is supplemental information that was provided by Council Member Vanessa Perez. She is here present today, and I believe her testimony would be relevant to the decision-making process for today's hearing. So if y'all would like to hear from her and ask her any questions, she is present. And you all may proceed as you all wish.
Okay, so then Councilmember Pettis will go ahead and proceed. You'll be testifying, Councilmember Pettis. And before you proceed, let me have you sworn in. You can raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this case now on trial is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
You may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to thank you all for taking the time out of your schedule to be here and hear this, that the city has brought forward. Here as a witness and also have facts in the case, which I'd like to present for you. I'm here as council member for District 7. Part of this whole thing that's particularly concerning to me is just everything that I've had to go through as a council member, a new council member. This has been happening since January 12th, which I got elected and sworn in on December 30th of the 2020. So this has really affected my ability to do my job and be a good public servant for the rest of my constituents, because ever since that day, it's been one thing after another with this request and this lobbying that hopefully the facts will come before you. But I just want to make sure that everybody kind of understands what happened, and if I can kind of just walk through what happened, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay. So I did include a sequence of events, which was some links to some videos that interviews that Mr. Patiño went on to his father's radio show, and they were kind of talking, but this all happened afterwards, so I kind of want to talk about what happened before. So he basically reached out to me on January 12th and told me that he wanted, congratulations for winning, and that he wanted to talk to me about a project. And I said, the same day I replied, I said, sure. And so I provided the text messages to you all in the evidence. And so I took a meeting with him. I don't have the exact date here on when exactly I met with him. January 26th via WebEx. We did have a meeting, my assistant and I, and we spoke to him about the project. And that's when he let us know that he was representing a company, North American Industrial Park. They were his clients, and that he was, at the time he was saying that he was advocating for a project which involved wanting the city to come in and provide trash removal services of a dump that they had uncovered in the development process. And so he basically told me that that was going to be about $50,000 worth of expenses that the company did not have. And because it was a city landfill at one time, they wanted the city to then take the trash and pay all costs, provide the trucks, and then waive all the trash fees at the landfill. So I said, okay, well, let me go ahead and look into it. So then after that, I went ahead and spoke to the people in the city. I had my assistant reach out to environmental services, reach out to basically everybody about this project. And then I found out that this was a long-standing process or request that had existed for years at the city level. And so then I said, okay, well, I need to really look into this, right? Like, what's all the background? What is all of this? At the same time, I was looking into it. My assistant messaged me at one point and said, hey, Mr. Patiño keeps messaging me. And he kept, hey, how's it going? What's the status? Like keeping, trying to, like, what's going on, right? So I said, can you please let him know that I'm still researching, I'm still looking into it. And even at the earliest, if we were going to be able to do anything, it wouldn't be able to go on to the agenda until March, because this was like in end of January, February. I said, I have so many other items that I need to bring forward. I just got in, there's other things, and I'm still doing research, right? So then he sent me a text message, and I provided that to you as evidence, and he stated, please understand that I will lose my opportunity, if this takes too long. And so that's when I was like, an opportunity for what? What opportunity would you lose? And so I just kind of said, okay, well, I'm sorry, but I didn't reply to him. And that's kind of set off red flags for me, like, hey, this is more than just like, hey, help us out. This is more like, help us now kind of thing. So I continued to look into it. And then he did send me an email the following day, but on the email the following day, he contradicted the amount that he had told me verbally in the meeting the day before, when he said the estimated cost is $78,000, which to me was a significant difference from the amount that he had just said. So that also was like a trigger for me, that why is there a $28,000 difference in price from one day to the other? Not only that, he had told my assistant that he was going to have a PowerPoint for us at the meeting, and when I got into the meeting, I said, oh, do you have a PowerPoint? And he's like, well, I can make one real quick. So that kind of also alerted me that, well, you asked for a meeting with the council member, but you're not prepared, like, with your presentation and everything. So all of this whole thing just struck me as strange, but again, I'm a new council member, so I'm just trying to figure out, like, all of this. And so, yeah, the text message that he responded to me at the time after my assistant had said that I needed to look into it, or, he said, please understand that in the construction industry, this is moving fast. And please advise, he sent it to my assistant on February 4th. Please advise Ms. Bettis that I will lose the opportunity if it takes 90 days to resolve. The city management is against this request, so their recommendation would not be favorable to my client. So that was the text message he sent to my assistant on February 8th. He sent me a very similar one. He changed it. Councilwoman Bettis, please understand that in the construction industry, this is moving fast, and I will lose the opportunity if it takes 90 days to resolve. The city management is against this request, so their recommendation would not be favorable to my client. Call me when you get a chance. Thanks. So I continued to research the project, and he continued to ask for assistance, and then I noticed later that he got influence from or to go and meet with County Commissioner Cindy Liendo as well. So he kind of texted me again that he was going to meet with her, inviting me to that. But at that point, I was suspicious that management, everything I was hearing from management kind of pointed to the fact that this was a private matter, that the city doesn't really do this kind of we don't really relocate trash for people. It's kind of the developer's responsibility. Our trash containers aren't even equipped for this kind of trash removal. They need something that's open and you get a claw, and our trash trucks are more for just like, they're different, right? So we don't even have the equipment. And so waiving of the fees, I spoke with Mr. Miazoria, and he said that we don't waive fees for this kind of thing because that's that's something that if we do it for them, we're gonna have to do it for everyone. So I also learned that they had reached out to our economic development director and asked him for assistance on this project, and he advised them that it didn't meet any of the criteria for an incentive or anything like that. So this was just all kind of, I don't know, it just was strange to me. So then, on March 18th, I asked for reports, and I asked my assistant where we were at in the research process on this, request, and she informed me that on March 12th, there was a meeting with Mr. Eads, Mr. Patiño, the developers, Councilmember Ruben Gutierrez, all at the request of Councilmember Gutierrez. Nobody gave me a call or let me know that they were going to meet on discuss this project. So I was concerned that he had reached out to another council member and basically council shopped to someone else to see if I guess he could get a faster result or something, and that they all had met without me being present. So that was concerning to me because I am the council member for this area. And so I did make phone calls. I did ask them, why did you all meet them with him? So then I notified our Miss Christina Hale, Assistant City Manager, that I believed he was lobbying. I believed he was acting as a lobbyist, and I was concerned that he needed to register as a lobbyist before he continued to contact other council members and before he continued to ask the city to provide assistance, especially when it had already run through all the departments and it just didn't fit the public, interest. So now this was more of like a try to make exceptions to the rules for this particular person and this particular project. So that's where I started kind of having these conversations with management. And on March 18th and April 18th, I can't remember the exact date, he apologized for having that meeting without me. And he advised that he was aware that legal did send him a letter stating that he needed to register as a lobbyist, and that he disagreed with that he didn't think he needed to register. And I said, you need to defer to what management told you at the March 12th meeting with Councilmember Gutierrez as far as what your options are for the city to help. They did discuss replatting out that section that had the trash so they can continue with the other areas, all of that. There were options discussed, but of course I wasn't present. Then on May 17th, I saw the project placed on the council agenda, item 61C2 by Councilmember Vidal Rodriguez, and it said, discussion with possible action for the city of Laredo to assist North America Industrial Park and any other matter incident thereto. This development will create nearly 1,000 jobs and 20 new import-export companies for a total investment of approximately $12 million. Well, I went back to the notes that I had in the letter that he had given me, and the letter he had given me stated that it was going to create thousands of jobs and not 1,000 jobs. And it said in the letter that he was going to be a total investment of $50 million, and on the agenda it said $12 million. So I had already experienced differences in the numbers, and to me it kind of seemed like all of these numbers were just arbitrary. So again, I was like confused on why another council member would place this on the agenda. And you can watch the hearing. It was public, of course, where he comes on. And I did ask him, are you lobbying? Are you here as a lobbyist? Because I was concerned that had he already been given notice of being possibly acting as a lobbyist, if we were to continue to hear his statements, then how serious are we about our lobbying policy? If he's lobbying, we're asking him to register, and then he comes out and starts basically lobbying. So his method of circumventing that was to bring somebody else, Mr. Sirafa, to come and basically lobby on his behalf. He admitted that he was giving him the statements and that Mr. Shirafa was there to like speak his words. So to me, it was like, well, you're just basically lobbying through somebody else, which isn't really any different than what we had asked you not to, to register as a lobbyist first and then come back and, follow that process, as a registered lobbyist and with the transparency and everything. I mean, the state has lobbyist policies, the city has lobbyist policies, and they all have their purpose, and so.
Ms. Perez, excuse me for interrupting. The communication to Mr. Patino, the letter, was it registered? Was he notified through a registered letter, or how do we send that? The letter that got sent to Mr. Patino about him not being, that he needed to be a lobbyist, was it a registered letter?
It's a certified.
Certified?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Zapata, the letter that
Chapter
the city
before.
attorney's
Okay.
office sent was sent certified. It came back as unclaimed, so it was later sent to him via email. And we received confirmation via email, which I believe you all also have in your packet as Exhibit B, confirming that he did receive that letter.
But he did confirm to me on the phone, like, I heard that you had, the city attorney sent me a letter making me register as a lobbyist. And I was like, well, I didn't tell them what to do. I just said that I believed you were lobbying, and they sent you a letter. So then all of that transpired at the council meeting. Well, it didn't end there, because right after that meeting, Mr. Patino went on social media and he made a post that basically saying, shame on you, Vanessa Perez, for tonight's council performance advocating against jobs growth, economical development, refusing to hear from your own constituents in your district. And his father, Hector M. Patino, comments, it's just a power trip, mijo. So they're basically, right after the meeting, he's putting all of this on social media, and then there's a post on our Laredo where they write, city attorney says Hector Patino's in violation of the ethics, and him and other people went on there to comment. And so I basically just posted the email where he says, please understand that, the text where he, says that he'll lose the opportunity. And that's all I said. And so after that, his father was like, well, why don't you just do it? Why don't you just help him with the project on social media? So I didn't engage with it. I said, do what? And then people said, what exactly do you want her to do? And people just started going off. But I wasn't attacking them. I wasn't going to his social media. Then I went on his father posted on his personal Facebook, hermanos, en este video vemos como mi hijo está atacado por Vanessa Perez en el City Council meeting. Fue atacado porque no está registrado como un lobbyist cuando muchos hacen lo mismo y no hagan registrados. Les pido sus oraciones por mi hijo. So he goes on social media and he puts that post, right? So, of course, I didn't engage. I didn't say anything on there or anything like that. Then he goes on his father's radio show. They're pastors, and they start talking. And on May 19th, they basically just start saying how everybody at the city is a atheist, and how we're all against the pueblo de Dios, and kind of talking really about what happened at the meeting, and how their community needs to call the city and look for me and look for Mr. Eads, and that's really the only way that the city is going to listen to them, because we're against religion and we're against him as a pastor. And he urged everybody to call. He gave them my cell phone number, and he gave them the city manager's number. And so then he goes on his own personal Facebook. Well, there he starts talking about a lot of different things. He makes a lot of misstatements. He makes a lot of public lies. He says things that are just not true. And they talk about compensation later on. He says that he did not charge in advance because he was unsure if he could help the consultants, but that consultants that do that type of work do expect to get compensated, which in fact, he is a consultant. He indirectly admits and justifies the compensation component of his interest in the project. Mr. Hector M. Patino, which is the father, asked, is it illegal si ellos están pidiendo a ti que les ayudan a North American Industrial Park? Is it illegal for them to pay you for those services? And Hector Lee says, it is not illegal, Dad. No les puedo cobrar, les dije, yo no te puedo cobrar porque yo no sé si la ciudad les va a hacer algo. Yo no te puedo garantizar que te ayudan o no te ayudan. His dad asked. Tú no les cobraste porque le dijiste, vamos a decir un ejemplo, cobró $10,000 para yo hago todo posible para que les ponga el City Council y lo que me hagan denied se van a sentir que, and Hector Lee says, que yo los robé. So they're talking about this, like why and how about the payment, right? And then he states there are lawyers and lobbyists that charge from this from the first day. Ni un consultant te va a ver gratis si te cobran, he says. He says that, and he stated he was a consultant and how he opened a company so people can pay him for his services that are very broad. And he basically just says that he does not lobby, that lobbying is not what he does not do that, and all of this stuff, right? So he's basically just going on social media. Then I went to do a ribbon cutting for the bridge in District 7, and he went on there and basically says, why is she there when she refuses to support North American Industrial Park to create 1,000 jobs and $12 million investment in her own district? So he starts basically, so I just basically told him, stop misleading the public, and he keeps on. He says, shame on you for refusing to serve as a public servant with integrity and respect. Now start an argument and attacking my father on social media, which my father has served this community for over 35 years as a pastor. And what have you done for this community? Nothing, just being a disappointment. So he tells me that on social media. Of course, I didn't engage. I didn't, continue or anything. Then he goes to his church on May 23rd, and he is being a pastor in Nuevo Laredo to his congregation, and he says, I want to tell you guys about a person that's been bothering me. He tells them that my name is Vanessa Perez and that I've been attacking him and just basically lying to them that and then he says, and she came up to me and told me, you are a false pastor. And how I wish that I would have been a man at that point, in Spanish, like saying, but I never went up to him. I never spoke to him. I never told him you're a false pastor. Like, it's a complete made up lie. So that concerned me that he's doing all of this, and I'm just trying to, all of this because he didn't want to register as a lobbyist and because I didn't want to put it on the agenda and I didn't want to push for the city to help him with this project. So then he goes on a live video and he basically says that misleading the public about how I'm discriminating him and that I'm being a hypocrite and that he's concerned about my mental health and that he's worried about me and just all kinds of lies and things like that. So then after that, he makes another post misleading the public again, and he just kind of has a history of doing that. Well then, people on social media were telling him stuff. Well then I find out that he tried to file harassment charges against me. He went to the police department on, what day was it? It was on May 25th. He went to the police department to file a harassment charge against me for harassing him on social media. They told him that it didn't meet the elements. So then he asked to speak to a supervisor. The supervisor advised him that it did not meet the elements of harassment. Patiño just wanted to have it on record. So he wanted a record and a case number, which then he took to the Justice of the Peace. And on the next day, on the 8th of June, on June 2nd, he filed for a peace bond against me, where he was asking for a peace bond to be placed against me. And the reasoning is, as a public official, harassing me and my family on social media. That's another thing that he went on saying on social media was that I will attack your family and everybody that you love, that I attacked him, that I attacked his family, that I went after, and none of that is true. I didn't do any of that. And I stayed quiet, and this is the first time I'm actually saying any of this to the public, because I didn't want to jeopardize, this hearing, but all of this has consequences. I mean, me as a public official, I have other constituents to work with, and he's telling my constituents that I'm attacking his family, that I'm attacking everybody you love. She'll go after everybody that you love. He's taking time away from me being able to serve the rest of my community. I have other things to deal with, and I had to take the time to defend myself. Of course, they dismissed the peace bond. They didn't grant it to him. but I had to take the time to defend myself in that. And the scary part of this is that, what about like somebody, I just came into public office to try to serve the public, and then I get slapped with all of this, a peace bond and filing harassment charges. And well, what about somebody else that tries to come in, and is this gonna happen to them, or is this gonna scare people away from being a politician? Like, this is not the way you're supposed to treat public officials, and all because he was lobbying. Then afterwards, final piece to this, and then I'll be done. I ended up meeting with the owners of the North American Industrial Park project by accident, because I had been asked for a meeting, and when I got there, they said, oh yes, the North American Industrial Park, and they said that they did pay him, that they had a contract, and that they did in fact pay him. And later on, they gave an affidavit, which I'm not sure, I think you all got, but here it says consulting contract services, between Patino and Medina Associates Consulting Firm and SDL Developer. And it says, consultant will lobby and advocate the City of Laredo local government in behalf of client to provide an economical savings plan with SDL Developer. Landfill development plan and City of Laredo government will transport all trash from the property to City of Laredo landfill. STL will only be in charge for loading the City of Laredo trucks. So that's what he agreed that he was gonna do for them. And payment shall be made as follows. Client shall pay a compensation of $25,000, the total project, with no extra charges. It says, client shall pay a non-refundable deposit of $5,000 and initial payment of $2,500 to initiate the contract services, which the check for $2,500 was given to him on January 12th, and that was the day that I received the first text message from him, was January 12th. So he had already contracted with this company when he reached out to me for the assistance, same day. Deposit of initiate contracts, and $2,500 as soon as written agreement is reached between City of Laredo and client shall pay $20,000 when City of Laredo initiates the services of transporting the garbage to the City of Laredo's landfill. I mean, he was lobbying, he was a lobbyist, he did not register as a lobbyist, he sat on this ethics commission at one point in his life and enforced the ethics policy, which he himself violated. And not only did he violate it, but he attacked me in my position to try to get to get me arrested for something that I didn't do. And then, I mean, all of this just so he can make $25,000 when this project doesn't even fit the criteria for that kind of assistance. And so that's basically the facts that I'm here to state.
Thank you, Councilman. I just have a question.
Yes.
You indicated you met with the STL developers.
Yes.
They are the owners of this industrial park, North American Industrial Park?
I believe I met with two owners.
Okay.
Yes.
You recall their names?
Mr. Luis Martinez,
The person who signed the affidavit?
excuse me?
The person who signed the affidavits?
Yes, because one of my neighbors, that turns out that is her boss, which I didn't know like this entire time. And I thought I was just gonna talk about, a project, I didn't know what it was. And him and I believe his brother were there, and it was about this project. And I think there's two other owners, but I don't know who they are.
And at that time, he had mentioned to you that he had contracted Patino?
Yes.
Mr. Patino and his firm?
Yes, he told me that he apologized. He said, I'm sorry. Everything that happened at the city council meeting, we were in the room. That when Mr. Patino started talking about being a pastor, that he thought, what does that have to do with us? We're businessmen. That he didn't know that there was an ethics violation. He didn't know that he needed to register as a lobbyist. He didn't know any of that. When we asked him if he had been compensated, he said he did not. He basically said, I have not been paid. I have not received any money. I have not been paid. I asked him, are you expecting to get paid? And he said, well, it depends. And then he said, I hope to get paid.
That was during the city council?
That was during the city council meeting, yes. But they told me that right after that meeting, because they were together, it was Zoom, that's when they fired him.
What date was that city council meeting?
City council date meeting was, I was placed May 17th. May 17th.
Okay, thank you. Do any members of the commission have any questions of Councilmember Perez? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Castillo, and I think we have a housekeeping matter regarding some consideration of an affidavit of some kind.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the affidavit was provided to, as well as the contract was provided to us on Monday, which was July 12th. And based on the rules, you all have the discretion, since it wasn't provided to you all, as well as to Mr. Patino 3 days before today's hearing, you all have the discretion on whether to consider it or not, if you all believe it's reasonable and important to consider for this particular hearing.
So the standard is whether or not the commission believes it to be important and reasonable for consideration?
No, in fact, it's actually just that you all have the discretion on whether to consider it or not.
Okay.
It's section 807A3. The commission by majority vote has the discretion to allow for consideration of materials not timely submitted. So because we submitted it to y'all because we received it on Monday, you all have that discretion, and you would just have to take a vote on whether to allow the consideration of those materials.
And just to be clear, this is the affidavit that is included under tab number 9,
Yes.
and then the contract that's under tab number 8, is that correct?
Correct, that's correct.
And Mr. Chair, the affidavit is from the owners. We have this, that has been
That's
verified. that
correct.
they
The
are-
owner of a North American Industrial, I forget what the name is, but yes, of the NAIP, the owner is, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Luis Martinez, who owns STL Development, which I understand owns NAIP, which I believe is what's listed in the affidavit, and he attests to that, as well as to the fact that they did hire Mr. Patino, and they did pay him, and the copy of the check is also on that last page of the contract.
Has there been a formal written objection submitted to this?
No, there has not been any written material submitted by respondent, Mr. Patino.
Mr. Chair, I'm with the opinion that those items are relevant and germane to the discussion.
So you're moving for the commission to admit it and consider
I
it?
am moving that they admit it for admission, for
Okay.
consideration.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion, anybody have any questions concerning this affidavit contract? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
My
Motion passes.
only concern is, I don't know if Mr. Patino had anything he wanted to say regarding
Right
that
after-
before.
Right after this. we'll
Right
call.
after this.
Okay.
So the motion passed.
Yeah.
So then it's going to be considered by the commission. Okay, so now at this point, we hear from Mr. Patino.
Yes, at this point, I don't believe there's any more to provide on this end, so Mr. Patino can provide any if he'd like to.
Mr. Patino, before you proceed, let me have you sworn in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this case, now on trial, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You may proceed.
First of all, thank you, Commission, and all of you for being here, taking your time. I want to take this moment. I know that Ms. Perez has indulged you in this political situation, so I don't want to take a lot of your time, but I do want to give you a context of what this is. This is a perfect example of political oppression or power or abuse of power in a sense. When I was serving as a commissioner of the ethics, she's part of our Laredo as other public officials are, as you guys are aware. And when I was here, the only commissioner who was attacked through Facebook and social media was to this group. So every decision that at the time the commission made, I was the only one that I was posted, my picture was there, and they criticized me in every decision. The city, at the time, I would call the city attorney, at the time Christina Hell, and I would ask, why is it that the attorney or anybody from the city defending the decisions of the ethics commissions. Why is it that we are not defending on social media? And her decision was, well, Mr. Patino, we don't have a PI person to defend on social media. We don't have that capacity. But and this didn't happen once. It happened many, many, many times where the ethics decisions that were made, I was attacked on social media. And so I want to start how I got into this political world. My dad mentioned when I was 16 years old, my accident. And this accident happened on Lafayette in Madison. And so railroads passed through there, and I was 16 years old. At the time, when I had the accident and I lost my arm, my other two siblings were involved. I met Hector Liendo, and I started meeting all these public officials at the time, Chuy Garza, who was running at the time. There was at the time there was no lights indicating emergency lights on the railroad for students or children crossing over. There was not a bridge. There was no safety guards. And so Hector Liendo, and he met with my family at the time. He was a council member. He advocated the city council to put a bridge for children who were crossing from, railroads and coming from school, or vice versa, coming home, going to school. And this was my first introduction into this political world, which was very, very difficult because at the time there were a lot of oppression or a lot of, we cannot do this, we cannot do that, but our issue was at the time, we need to advocate for the safety of the children at the time. And so that's my first introduction to this world. I was a child. I'm 22 years old. I had, because of the accident, I went through a lot of situations where it was difficult. It's difficult to overcome many situations in life. I went to school in 2005 as I'm doing a master's in theology. In 2005, my brother is murdered. We're from the west side of Laredo, which is Las Cantarranas. It's the neighborhood. My brother, through this accident that happened back in '92 that we went through as kids, we were kids. My brother felt so much guilt and so much condemnation because he was right next to my sister, but still he was frozen. He couldn't do anything. As I grabbed my sister to push her away from the coming train, we go under the train, both of us. As we're under the train, I'm asking my sister, don't move, don't move. And she's moving. She's 11 years old. I'm 16, and she's moving outside the train. As I'm trying to not make her move, she's panicking, and so all this trauma of psychology is coming into. I didn't know at the time. I put my hand on the rail as I'm pushing her back in and telling her, don't move, because if you move, you're going to kill us both. As I put my hand on the rail, the train goes and takes my hand. My brother, at that time, he froze. I didn't know at the time that happens is when you're in shock. He froze, and because of that experience, he felt so much guilt that he couldn't overcome it. He becomes a heroin user, and he started shooting himself. He goes to a house to go connect and buy heroin. In 2005, he gets picked up right there on West Side on Cantarranas. He gets picked up by the Mexican mafia, and he's taken to Pueblo Nuevo. He's shot, and he's taken in the trunk of a car and burned. We have been in our neighborhood all our lives. We knew the guys who had murdered him. So in 2005, I come back to Laredo, and working with my dad, we start meeting again, all these public officials. I start meeting for the first time Joe Rubio, and I start meeting district judges, and I start meeting all these attorneys. And one of the first things we saw was the JP from the South who gave a $1,000 bond to all the 7 defendants who were charged with double murder, double kidnapping, and they were charged with a $1,000 bond. We went to the judges and said, judges, we need change in our community. This cannot be happening, or a JP comes in and puts a $1,000 bond on an individual charged with murder. The Mexican mafia members, all of them bombed out within an hour of them being arrested. We started advocating. We started advocating for this change in our community. Today, no JP has a power to put a bond on a defendant because of that work that we did in 2005. We met for the first time Judge Hell. At the time, he was a candidate. And we said, Judge Hell, we need justice in our community. Families are suffering today. And we need change with the JPs. We need someone accountable to say that this is not right. In 2008, as I'm working on a master's and advocating for this change, one was to put a difference on defendants who had been charged with murder and put the right bonds on them. The second part that happened was plea deals that were going on at the time, that they came in and said, Mr. Patiño, we're offering 5 years for the guys who murdered your brother. We sat as a family and we sat with the DA's office and we said, no. The DA's office said to us, we can't make it happen because the evidence, it is not strong enough. I remember Joey Tez as being one of the prosecutors who said, Mr. Patiño, you're asking us, forcing us to a deal that we can't prove. He goes, you're going to lose. And we asked them, go to trial. Let the people of our community decide what is justice in our community.
Well, Mr. Patiño, let me stop you there. If I can get you to get right to the.
I'm going there. I'm going there.
That's not the issue we have right now
Let me
before
just
us.
explain why, because you indulge Ms. Perez. So I would like to give you a few minutes of why I'm here today.
All right.
And so, at that time, they went to trial, all these defendants, and all these defendants were sentenced to life in prison because of the work. It wasn't easy to convince the DA's office. It wasn't easy to advocate. It wasn't. But we made that change in our community. 2008, I started working. Judge Hale calls me and says, Hector, I want you to come and work for us. I want you to do something in our community. We started the drug court program. The drug court program is dealing with criminals who are coming in and out of our prison system with no mercy, with no help. It's a revolving door. They come in and they go out. And so we created a drug court program that deals with drug abuse and mental health. And it's a holistic approach to these defendants who are coming in. We wanted a difference in our community. Drug court was created. Nobody, no public official wanted drug court at the time. Nobody. It was hard to convince the probation office, the pretrial office, public defenders, the DA's office, the federals. Every law enforcement agency was against this program. It was a unique, different approach because it dealt with one case, all the departments getting together and talking about how can we help this defendant become a productive citizen of our society and not going back to prison and not coming back to our communities and hurting our community. And so as a drug court advocate, I became a drug court director there. I was there with Judge Hale for so many years. It is through that work, so many families, and I'll give you one case, where one case goes, a defendant goes before Judge Hale, he is smelling like he's dying. And Judge Hale says, Hector, go talk to this guy, something's wrong. And I go to one of the jury rooms and I take this guy, his name was Ardua, and I go, what's going on? Show me your shirt. He has so many holes all over his chest, his arm, his legs, where he's shooting up heroin and cocaine, that his skin does not dissolve and the heroin does not dissolve. The skin starts falling off. At that moment, we had to call the ambulance, take him to the hospital. 3 months later, he came back. He goes, Mr. Patiño, thank you, because you saved my life if it wasn't for that day. And so a year later, during the drug court counseling, therapy, we put doctors in there, we put psychiatrists in there, social workers with law enforcement. He is drug-free, he's working, he has a family. And it was very complex cases. It wasn't an easy, but we have served over 1,000 families with this particular problem in our community. But the opposition was there. It was no, 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 no all the time. Last year, as I leave drug court and I leave that type of work, I'm with my partner, who is Enrique Medina, which works with me. And I'm sitting with him in a car. And I get a phone call from one of these families that know that I handle a lot of typical cases. So my consulting firm that I started I received this call and says, Mr. Patiño, I need you to help me. And I go, okay, what do you need? He goes, my employee goes to Mexico and comes back. They're telling me that he drowned in the river. They have him in the morgue. And I said, okay, what can I do? He goes, Mr. Patiño, I need you to help me because I need to identify him, but I can't identify him. And so he goes, but I want to pay the funerals, I want to pay everything, but I want to make sure he is who he is and take him back to his family. I said, let me get into it. I go talk to the morgue, I go see him at the morgue, and I take person, the family, to the morgue and said, but I don't recognize him. I don't know if he's in. He's bloated because of the river. I go back to the funeral home. I talked to Hernandez Lopez, and they agreed to take the body. And I said, I need you to help me how to figure out how do we identify this man. Through Mr. Hernandez Lopez and myself, we're talking in his office. I go, have we looked into his property?
Chairman, can I speak for a second? What if this has to do anything with what?
Oh, sir, you need to sit down, please.
And so Mr. Hernandez and I look into the property of this man, and we see a ring. And I say, I think this ring is special. I call the family and I said, what? Can you identify this ring? I said, that's the ring we gave him in Christmas before he left to Mexico. So my friend Enrique Medina is next to me while we help this family out. He goes, Hector, did you charge this family? I said, no, I didn't charge this family because I don't know if we can charge them or we're going to help. He goes, Hector, I think we need to start a consulting company, and you see this type of cases and you have to charge for your services. You can't be doing it for free. And I told him, I said, I've been doing free stuff because of my parents, because of the ministry. I do things for free. I get calls all day, different type of families needing something, and I help them for free, never charge. So I started this small company. Actually, my office today sits at Mile 1, which is an economical development grant by the city of Laredo, because it's a small firm. And to clarify what she mentioned about me getting paid, let me clarify what that meant, because I don't handle payments. It is Enrique Medina who handles payments. I actually see him as, he's my employer because he pays the expenses there at the office. It's a $580 rent. It's a small firm. And so he's paying the rent. Let me say it's like an investor. He goes, Hector, you work the cases and I'll pay expenses and we'll see if this makes money or not. It's a small firm. So this is where I'm at. I want to talk into what Mr. Vinicius is talking about. And I want you to go to, if you have, I don't know if you have a copy of the City of Laredo Code of Ethics. But I want to turn to your page, and I'm going to go through it because it pertains to this. Page 36, at the top, it talks about legislative exclusion. And it's talking about Texas legislation. This code has errors, and it's very broad into the definition as to a lobbyist is. It doesn't identify many things. So it's talking about the Texas legislators, it's talking about Richard Raymond, it's talking about Tracy King. It doesn't talk about city council. So someone didn't take the time to really edit this properly and reflect what the city of Laredo wanted to do. My first argument is this. The Code of Ethics, 1, wasn't done with the intent that a private citizen couldn't work. And so I want to turn to your page 9. It defines who the intent of Code of Ethics was. The intent was for public officials. And it says the mayor, city council, members of boards, committees, and commission, a county judge, the associate judge, the city manager, the deputy city manager, the assistant city manager, secretary. It talks about public officials. This is the intent of this Code of Ethics. It was never the intention to apply it to a private citizen or a small firm or a small business. Me and my partner working together and trying to see if this is a business that could make money or something. I don't know if it's going to work out. But the code was never intended for the city of Laredo to attack a private citizen. On page 12, page 17, it talks about the boards and who it's talking about. Now, let me give you an example. On the approach Second argument I'm gonna talk is about the approach, guys. If you have been in public office or have served our community, I received a call 2 weeks ago. A gentleman calls me and says, Mr. Patiño, I'm making a swimming pool in my house. I go, okay. But the city of Laredo went and put a stop construction. I said, okay. He goes, I want you to come and see it and tell me what I need to do. I go, okay. I got the letter from the city of Laredo. I went to planning and zoning and I said, hey, this guy's building a swimming pool. He doesn't have a permit. You guys put a stop construction. What is he supposed to do? The planning and zoning building, the people there working said, Mr. Patiño, this is the application he has to do. This is the requirements. We'll give you 2 weeks to come back and see if he meets the requirements. The approach, guys, the approach. The approach was never, let me see a police officer, which this week alone, I got 2 police officers go to my house, go drop off this. Intimidating, but it is. When investigators are looking for you, calling and telling you, Mr. Patiño, we're investigators from Laredo PD, we're looking for you. That was not the approach I saw when this man wanted to build the swimming pool. The approach cannot be that we use the Ethics Commission as a political football to hurt private citizen or a small business.
You did that to me.
And so, I wanna say this, that the ethics code was never to apply for a private citizen, never. Now, I want to use this opportunity, I really do, guys, and say to Ms. Perez, if I offended her in any way or form, I am sorry, Ms. Perez, I apologize. But that was never my intent. That was never my intent to hurt her or embarrass her. And sometimes I come a little aggressive, and sometimes I get excited, and I apologize to Ms. Perez. Maybe her feelings got hurt. I am so sorry. But a simple answer from the city, from her, would have been suffice. If she would have said, Mr. Patiño, we're not helping you. The city of Laredo would have come and told me, Mr. Patiño, forget about it. But then that's it. But the fact that they never notified me, she never called back. And what am I supposed to do? And I'm hoping now on her own testimony, she said she met with my friends. Luis Martinez is a good friend of mine. I'm happy she met with them. Hopefully now they can finish that development project. And now she can help them. The landfill, it was not just trash. It's a landfill that the city had back in the 70s. The city does not want to touch it because it's a landfill. And all I was asking was, let's help this developer because of the pandemic that is going on, and let's see how we can create jobs. Let me see it was nothing wrong to advocate for those things. But I'm hoping today, now that because they called me and said, Mr. Patiño, Ms. Perez doesn't want to call us. She doesn't want to meet with us. She does not want to respond to us. So they hired me and said, can you please contact the city? And I said, okay, well, I can do that. I can make a phone call. Hopefully we can make a meeting. Hopefully we can work something. But on the ethics code, it was never the intent of this body of the city council to amend it to include private citizens. Me, as a private citizen, I can do any type of work that people come and hire me for. That's why I'm a consultant, because I'm not doing government works. Now, can I put this on the screen? I don't know if you guys can see it. So let's talk about the lobbyist. I don't know if it's on the screen. Is it on the screen? You guys can see it? Do I have to turn it on, or?
I don't know what that is.
Mr. Chair, that's not available on our screens to see. We can see it on.
You guys see it? That's what I want you guys to see it. It's the registration lobbyist list.
Mr. Patiño, let me ask you this. I'm looking at section 5.01, 5.02, which is what we're talking about today. And there's a definition of persons. who are subject to this provision.
Which page is this?
Go to page 29.
29.
Okay, look at letter K.
Yes.
Okay, so that person there is a defined term. It says means an individual, corporation, association, et cetera. So you're an individual, correct?
That is correct. But
Okay,
I'm
then
talking
hold on,
about the
hold on. Let me
intent.
just ask you, it's not about intent, it's whether or not you violated.
Right.
So then you go to 5.02, and it talks about registration.
Yes.
Persons required to register as lobbyists. So I'm kind of at a loss as to why you think that a mayor or a city official would have to register to lobby somebody else within the city
well,
as
because
opposed to
the-
you, an individual.
Well, because the intent of this, because that was the question last hearing.
Where are you getting your intent from?
Well, because last hearing, if I remember correctly, my recollection was correct, someone was asking, what was the intent of the ethics code? What was the intent? The intent was never to attack a business or private citizen. It was for public officials not to be corrupted because they have all this influence and all this network within the city government. And that what was trying to prevent. That was their intent.
But by
It was
registering,
never
but
to
by
say,
just registering as a lobbyist, how is that something
Okay.
incorrect or improper and outside the intent of the code?
well, let me get into that. So let's say the lobbyist requirement. So as a list, there's only one firm in Laredo. One. Brown and Ortiz is the only firm in Laredo registered. How many times in city council do you see contracts being given or awarded to different entities and businesses? Nobody's registered, guys. Nobody. And so now, oh, Mr. Patiño, he got paid $2,000. Oh, no, vamos a, let's hit him hard. Oye, but every city council, they're giving, and I can just think out of my head, I don't know, los tecolotes, they get huge contracts there. The Max Golf Course, huge contracts there, millions, guys, million. So let me use the word that the city attorney used, as of caution. They said, because of caution, we're bringing it to you. Why is it that they can't bring those contracts here? And no one's registered. And if you look, Brown and Ortiz, duty free is their client. David Kellam just got awarded $300 million on tax incentives. They're not registered. They're not, guys. And so if the city attorney wants to apply this to me, a small business owner, and self-employed, then let's start it. Don't start it with me. Start it with all the big firms in the city of Laredo. Cold storage. How many millions is he getting? Millions. That all the import-export industry are upset because one individual is getting the benefits of all that. Has Ms. Vanessa complained about that one? Or has she complained about any other industry business coming into Laredo getting a contract at city council? This is my concern, guys. This is all political. And again, I apologize for her, for offending her. But if we want to be fair, then let's be fair to everybody then. And lastly, I want to finish with this. And you mentioned it. The requirements, Mr. Perez. The requirements for registering, to get registered. I understand most of you guys are lawyers. Most of you, and other ones are consultants too. So for you guys who have a big practice, $1,200 as a fee is not a big deal. I got calls, Mr. Patiño, just register. Nomás regístrate. What's the problem? I said, I don't have $1,200. It ranges from $300 to $1,200. Right now, guys, I'll be honest. We are all suffering. Small business owners are suffering. I'm at the City of Laredo Economical Development grant at Mile 1 because I can't go rent a huge office for myself. I can't pay the light or the water, pay a secretary, pay internet. They're offering all those incentives there. I'm starting this business. They're helping me. So $1,200 is a lot of money right now for me. Unless, and this is where I'm going, unless your recommendation would be, if you want to, for me to be registered, I'll register. waive the fees because I can't. Even if I want to. Right now, you can check the City of Laredo water bill. I'm behind on my water bill. I'm behind on my utilities. Do I want to pay $1,002 on fees, or do I put food on my table for my family? And that's the issue. I understand that we're big firms, we're making thousands of dollars. It's not a big deal. It's not a huge expense. For someone like myself, as a small business owner, it's difficult. It is really, really, really difficult. It is not easy. The approach, and this is my argument, the City of Laredo should have never said, if you don't register, this is gonna happen. No. Like this week, police officers showing up at my house. No, Commissioner. This is what's wrong in our community today. This cancer of public officials abusing their power and saying, you can't, pero tú sí. Tú sí, tú no, tú sí, tú no. No, guys. We're here to serve as public servants. And I apologize to her. She doesn't want to hear it. I am sorry. She refuses to hear it. But if you are a public official, you are above reproach. You need to hear from constituents. And even if you disagree with you, as a public official, you have to engage it because no one forced you to do that position. She chose on her own to be a public official. She chose to get a cell phone that is paid by the City of Laredo and by constituents by our taxes. Then she should hear from us. Simple as that. And she could have just called me or sent me a letter or emailed me, or what she done, sent her assistant getting paid $70,000 for assistant and told me, Mr. Patino, we're not involved, we're not helping, we can't. That would have been the end of it. But the fact that they were never clear with us, never. And now she's talking to my friends to see how can she help them with the North American Industrial Park. All of this comes down to political drama. And I apologize for bringing it to you because it should have never been brought here, guys. It should have never been here. And the reason why I went to the police, why I went to Justice of the Peace, Pepe Salinas, and requested this protection was she claims that she didn't say anything. But what she did is, our Laredo, just look at the Facebook, our Laredo, how many times they criticized me, even through today. And she's using that group. She should have never gone to a private citizen and attacked a private citizen because he disagrees with you. You are a public official. She should have known better. But no. She wants to use this commission to destroy a small business. And I'm sorry, because I'm about to close my office because of this situation. No one wants to work with me. No one wants to do business with me because of this situation that I have. Because she has told the city attorney and the city administration, don't talk to Patino. She even put an agenda item that said, no one from District 7 can talk to city administration without my consent. It was placed on the agenda. City officials called me and said, Mr. Patino, we can't because she put it on the agenda, we can talk to you. And so, if you believe that I need to register, and I will follow your recommendation, guys. I will follow that. I only ask that you work with small businesses because how can we work? The approach has to be where the City of Laredo open arms to small businesses and helps them, rather than bring them to a commission and said, we're gonna hit you with fines, we're gonna arrest you, we're gonna put you in jail, we're gonna threaten your business and your clients and your friends. I'm gonna go and steal your clients and go against you. That's not what a public official does, guys. And I'm sorry that this situation is even here. But all I ask is, if you believe I need to register, make the recommendations. I only ask that you waive the fee because I cannot pay that fee. Or work with me. You know, Patino, you have this much time to make the payments and work out. But as of right now, I can't go to the city attorney and say, I need to register and not pay. It's you pay and you register. That's kind of what it kind of works. And because there's two individuals, me and my partner there, it's more fees. It's for individual in the firm. So I don't know how the city secretary will charge. So all I ask is work with me and I'll work with the city of Laredo. But open the door for me to work, be able to meet with the city administration on different projects. But I can't talk to the city administration because she has prevented me from doing so. I can't. And if you see the video where we're talking, where Vidal Rodriguez brings it up, he mentions it. He says it. Why is it that city administration cannot meet with the Northern Industrial Park individual guys and work something out? Why? They couldn't even meet with me. As a public official, you have to respect everybody's opinion and give them an opportunity to be heard, as I'm heard today by you. So I yield today. Well, asking is, if you believe that this is something that I need to follow, then one, make the city of Laredo attorney office, everybody follow the same rules. Everybody. Not only me, but every contract that is giving out at city council, they have to register as a lobbyist because they're getting contracts. One, I'm not getting paid by the city of Laredo. I'm a private citizen. But those people are getting paid directly by the city of Laredo. So make it, if you're going to make a recommendation, but something that is going to be meaningful and it's going to have real change. Because what's the point of hitting me, a small business? It doesn't make a change in our city. But if you make it where the city attorney says, you need to be on the lookout for every contract that is being given by the city council, whether they are registered. Because the city attorney doesn't bring those contracts. Who brings those contracts? Council members bring them into their agenda. You can see Vanessa Perez's agendas. She has brought up projects in her district, and those people are not registered. They're not. And so, one, make it all. Everybody needs to register because no one registered. And then second, work with small businesses or firms like myself on the fee because we can't do that sometimes. So all I ask is work with us and I'll work with you guys. Thank you so much. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Patiño? Members of the commission?
Just one question. There's a Mr. Medina, your partner?
Enrique Medina, yes.
He's your partner.
Yes, he's me and my investor. He's the one helping me starting this business that we're starting. And so he's the one right now in charge of the bank accounts. That's why when I said I didn't get paid because he's the one in charge. He is, and I apologize, he couldn't be here for the commission because he is in Mexico right now, in Mexico City. He does have an import-export company. He does something else on the side besides this. But it was through him that I met the North American Industrial Park investors, through his contacts. And that's how I met these individuals.
Thank you. After you were notified about having to register as a lobbyist, the reason you didn't do it was because of the fees, right?
But financially, yes, it's hard.
But I understand, though, that your firm got paid a $2,500 deposit for that work. Now, was that after you got this letter letting you know that you should be registered?
Okay, we got paid, my understanding was in November that we started this contract. We didn't get paid until January.
Now, you didn't start approaching Ms. Bettis until after you had that
January.
first check, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And
So
so to answer,
the opportunity to register could have been there using some of those fees that were
Well-
paid to your firm to register.
to answer your question is no, and let me explain why. Because when you're paying $600 of rent and paying the expenses of the business, it becomes very expensive. So by the time they sent me the letter, it was in March. I got the letter in May. That's when, if you look at your emails, that's when they send me an email, which for attorney purposes legally, An email's not being served. That's not a service. If correct me if I'm wrong, attorneys, but an email's not official. You can send 100 emails to a judge. That doesn't count. You have to file an official letter and serve them officially to be official. So when I got that email in May, and this is 5 months after we got paid, one, the expenses already too much, the expenses. And second, for me, an email, it's not, legally, it's not a serious document because it's not certified. So it is not until city council that I get notified that I couldn't speak because city attorney had concerns about it. And so if you look at the email, one of the things that I did respond once I got the email in May was, can we sit down and talk about this because of the occupation that I have? And I wanted to explain to them and have an opportunity to say, I can't pay the fees if you want me to register. That's fine, but work with me and give me an opportunity to make this work. It was never the intent of misguiding or saying, no, you're not. If this commission believes that I need to register, then give me an opportunity to do so. But when you're starting, for those who have started a small business, it is hard, guys. It is really, really hard financially, especially now with the pandemic and COVID. And let me say this, guys. How is it that the city spends this much time and hours from the city attorney on me when we're facing a huge crisis of water? Where's the complaints there? Where is if they're saying that, Mr. Patiño, we need to follow the letter of the law, then right now, how can you spend so much time and money on this issue when right now, guys, our community is suffering? And rather than bringing solutions, the approach has to be, how can we help small businesses? Not how we hurt you. I have never hurt anyone. And we can play this political game. I can play this game with her all day if I want to. I can do it. An attorney said, Mr. Patiño, pues file complaints against Ms. Vanessa, file complaints against this, count complaints on everybody. And I said, why play that game? Why? That's not important. I don't want to do that to her. I want to do right for my community and make a difference. That's what I want to do. And if she wants to close my business and the city of Laredo uses power through the city attorney to close my business, then be it. I'm fine with that. I can go home. But this commission has to make real changes. And the change has to be, when I sat here and I was one of the commissioners that said, Mr. Zapata was here, I said it. This commission cannot be used for political football games. Cannot. This is serious. So I ask you today, your recommendation, make real change today by instructing the city attorney that every city council, that they make a recommendation and say, hey, they're not registered as lobbyists. They can pay. They can easily pay $1,002. How many attorneys, this example, the attorneys representing the city of Laredo on the tax, are they registered? There's the list. They're not registered. They can pay it. Make it fair to all of us. And make a right recommendation. That's all I'm asking. Why are they going against me? She says it's not political. It looks pretty political. It looks like that. And so I'm sorry that I ran against Ms. Perez, and we were against each other when we were running. The campaign was over. She could have said, Mr. Patiño, I'm not working with you. Don't call me. And I would have never called her again. The reason I put the peace bond was because she went on social media and started attacking my parents. Started attacking my ministry. Let me say how she did it. She used other people from our Laredo to talk. You can go to our Laredo and see it. And said the corruption of Mr. Patiño. And she put a wolf on the social media. This other person does the wolf. And Ms. Perez starts engaging in conversations with these individuals. Directly is influencing our community to attack my parents. And this is why I have to resort to those situations. And I apologize to her because it was never my intent to do that. And I want to thank Pepe Salinas because when I was there at the hearing, he absconded me and said, Mr. Patino, it was a whole full hearing, and he says, Mr. Patino, at the end of the day, he goes, you are above all of this because you are a man of God. And it was that moment, and believe me, guys, I got really sick. I got really mad when this situation was happening with Ms. Perez, that I wanted to go all out. But it was those words from Judge Pepe Salinas that I called him the other day, and I said, Judge, thank you. Because sometimes we get lost, and we forget. And he goes, Mr. Patiño, you're better than this. Let her, let the city, let everybody do whatever they need to do, but don't forget who you are. And so I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity, the commission, to speak and indulging me in this. I want to thank you. And if anybody has any more questions.
Mr. Chairman, I do. You said that you were doing work for the client prior to signing the contract. Is that correct?
No. We were working to see if we can do a contract. That's what I meant.
With the client?
Northern
At
Industrial.
no time before the 12th of January 2021, did you ever engage the city councilwoman, members of the staff on behalf of the client?
And let me be honest with you, Commissioner, I don't recollect, I don't remember if I did something prior, but I don't remember, to be honest with
If
you.
you did do something prior, what would that have been? Mr. Chair?
I don't think so, because at the time, George Alkett was there, and I already knew my position with George. He didn't work with me, and he told me, so why bother? So I don't think I did. I think we started contacting the city afterwards.
After you received
Yes.
payment, after you received the contract?
Yes, and it's because it was a huge deal. The Northern Natural Park has been struggling with the situation for about 4 years. So they told me, Mr. Patiño, this is a huge undertaking. It is not an easy situation. And I said, it's okay. I mean, all we can do is ask. And if they say no, it's a no, but we can ask.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions?
Could I ask one briefly? Mr. Patino, you testified right now that the first time you heard from Mr. Benavides was around the May 17th City Council meeting?
Yes.
But you all did not discuss, you didn't tell him why you're not going to register
No.
as a lobbyist, or?
He didn't call me. I just got the email, and I'll be honest, how I got notified about the email was through the city secretary. He called me. He goes, Mr. Patiño, you need to register as a lobbyist. And I said, I don't have the money. Because you need to register because they're not going to allow you to speak at the city council because of that. And I said, okay, all right, was. And so when that day happened at city council, the only reason I got, and you guys know, a friend of mine, Frank Sharafa, I said, Frank, help me out because I don't have anybody else who can articulate the project itself to city council. And I believe the city attorney is going to object me talking about it, so I need someone to talk about it. You can see the video. They didn't allow us the opportunity to even present the project. They shut me down that day. Ms. Perez acted like an attorney, and she thought she was a prosecutor at that moment, and was trying to get me to say that, yes, I'm a lobbyist, yes, I'm getting paid, and that's what her motive was. The approach from the city has never been since the beginning. Mr. Patiño, let's sit with you. How can we help you? Okay, Mr. Patiño, there's a requirement, register. How can we do this? Never. If every business in Laredo gets an opportunity to work with the city, it's never to close their business. It's, okay, how can we help you? That is the approach. If it happens an individual who wants to open a swimming pool, they don't go and arrest them. They don't hit them with fines. They don't do that. They go, you need to submit plans, you need to register, you need to do what is right, but they don't threaten you with police officers going to your house and saying, Mr. Patiño, we're coming from PD, we're an investigator looking for you. I don't know about you guys, but an investigator is looking for you, you kind of freak out for a bit. And especially if the police officers outside your house, the neighbors. I don't know about you guys, but, oye, hola policía, tu casa, ¿qué está pasando? You know, I don't know about you guys, but I work with law enforcement all my life that I already know that as an investigator is there. It's a little threatening, guys. It's a little threatening. It's not an easy, pie to eat. So, and they go, we're coming from the city attorney's office, I'm like, whoo, duré como 10 minutes afuera, adentro de mi casa, no nos quería abrir. It was intimidating, guys, but, I'm just saying, make the recommendation that it's going to help small businesses, not the recommendation that it's going to hurt businesses. That's all I'm asking.
All right, thank you, Mr. Patino.
Thank you, each one of you. Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, if there's no further questions of Mr. Patino, I just want to clarify a couple things for you all. One, about what he's talking about with the police officers. Yes, there were investigators who did go hand deliver the documents to him. The reason for that was because he had not claimed the certified mail that had previously been sent to him, and we wanted to ensure that he received the documents and had notice of this hearing and everything that was going to be presented before him. So we did have investigators who are not in uniform, had no purpose for police matters other than just to give him the documents to ensure that he had notice properly. Additionally, I want to clarify section 101 of the code. If you look at the third paragraph, as far as the discussion of intent was going on regarding the ethics code, it states the provisions and requirements of this code shall apply to public officials, employees, and every person who attempts to influence government action, such as former city officials and employees, candidates for public office, persons doing business with the city, and lobbyists. Additionally, I do want to clarify that not everybody who does business with the city is a lobbyist, and many people who come to advocate for their own businesses for themselves do not have a requirement to register as a lobbyist. In addition, council members are not supposed to meet with people who are lobbyists who are not registered. So that is just the clarification that I wanted to give you all regarding that. Additionally, I know there was some talk about proper service. I don't really think I need to get into that other than the fact that he was delivered notice by hand delivery and he received it. Additionally, just the fact that it was very clear that he just needed to register.
Thank you, Ms. Castillo.
And we talk about the private, as attorneys, most of you who are attorneys, the city of Laredo has abilities to do a private server. They have the financial means to do a private server. It didn't have to be a police officer who comes to your house. And yes, they're not in uniform, but they're with a gun. And it says Laredo PD on their badge. So it's a little intimidating, for her to say that the city of Laredo, yeah, we used investigators, but it wasn't not a big deal. But they have private servers. They use them all the time as attorneys. They could have used a private server if they wanted to. But that was not their intent. Their intent was different. It was intimidation from the city. And that's the issue today. And for her to say on the ethics that doesn't apply, I just want to say, all of this is a city government cannot attack a business, a small business, and say, to dictate to them and say, this is how you run your business, Mr. Patina. This is how you want to do it. You don't dictate. The approach has to be different. The approach has to be, how can we help you and for you to prosper as a business? Because that's what we want. At the end of the day, that's what we want. Not to hit you hard with fees and fines and intimidations. That is not the job of a government. That is not. This body has an opportunity today to make a difference in our government. And that is, and she wants to say that an individual who has their own business, who gets a contract, doesn't have to register as a lobbyist. So she's already defending those people getting contracts by the city. Do you really believe that those guys getting a contract of $1 million and over, they didn't talk to any city council members?
Excuse me, Ms. Castillo, according to the testimony of Mr. Patino, there's only one registered lobbyist?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not sure where he got that information, and at this time, I don't have the actual certified documentation from the
As
city
many-
secretary as to how many are registered.
As much work that the city requires and does, there's gotta be more lobbyists registered, right?
I just don't have that information at that time, Mr. Zapata.
You know?
Are we allowed to have a rebuttal by Ms. Renes?
I believe so. If you'd like to hear from her, she
Councilmember
can
Pettis, I
speak.
think you had something to say.
I do. Thank you for allowing me to come back up here. I just wanted to clarify a few things. I know Mr. Patino stated that, that this was personal or that my feelings got hurt. I just wanted to clarify that that's not the case. I'm just trying to do my job as a elected official. I was told to read the code of ethics. We were given training by the city of the ethics, and we're held responsible to follow the code of ethics as well. And once I identified the behavior as being that is of a lobbyist, I cannot control what the city does outside of the fact that I can control who approaches me and who comes to me. And once I saw that had suspicion that he was acting as a lobbyist, I then got consulted with the attorney, and I always do when it comes to issues. When he's talking about me putting agenda items, I did say that I think we needed to maybe make some changes to our ethics policy to strengthen them, and maybe, see, how maybe if there are other instances of lobbying, or I haven't experienced personally. This is like the one lobbying experience that I have that I could say, well, he was pushing for the project. I believe he was getting compensated, and he's not the project, directly. He's kind of an outside entity. The part that when he said that if the city would have told him that they weren't interested, he did text me, management is not in support of this project. Like, they had gone through the whole thing with him already before me, and then trying to tell the owners where this project stands in terms of, eligibility for economic incentives and how the city can help, and whether or not, we're talking about public funds, we're talking about taxpayer dollars. Any incentive that we would provide to this company would come out of our general fund. We would have to make that money up somewhere else. So he wants us to agree to help a private development when then every other development in the community is going to want the same kind of help. If they want us to waive the fees for them, then we're going to have to waive the fees for everybody. And it's unfair to say that because you don't want to help this company, you're against jobs, you're against business, you're against growth. It's not the case. We do want jobs and growth. And of course, he also stated that if I didn't want to speak to him, I could have ignored him. That is true. If I didn't want to speak to him, I could have ignored him, but I didn't ignore him. As soon as he texted me the first time, asked to meet with me, I met with him. I don't have anything personal against Mr. Patino, his family. I've never attacked Mr. Patino or his family. He also stated that I'm part of our Laredo. We have the founder of our Laredo here, and he can tell you that I'm not part of our Laredo. I am not a member of our Laredo. So anything that other people say or do, it's unfair for him to put that as me. Like, I cannot control what other people do and say and post and write or whatever. So for him to accuse it of me of doing that is unfair to me as well. And so that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like, he gave a very long speech here today that, kind of didn't really have some relevance in the beginning as far as this particular case, but you can see that he has shown dangerous public behavior. When he talks about being intimidated about the police coming to his house, I had constables coming to my house to serve me paperwork that I'm getting slapped with a peace bond. He filed harassment charges against me, and when they told him that it didn't meet the elements, he escalated it by going to the superiors and the higher ups to try to get them to make what other people are saying about him on social media with their free speech, because nobody, from what I saw, that wasn't harassment or anything, to use it against me. So I was intimidated also when I had the constables calling me, I have a peace bond here for you, and we need to serve you with... That's also intimidating. They showed up with a gun. They showed up with a badge also. The intent is not to intimidate. And if that's the claim from him that we were trying to do it, it's like, well, was he trying to do that to me? You know? So that's kind of where I'm at, is like, should he be, you know, was he required to be registered as a lobbyist? You know, we did notify him, and when he said that he didn't get the notice until May, he did call me, like I stated in my evidence, sometime between March 18th and April 20th, which is like a month's time frame. I can't remember the exact time, but he did let me know that he had been notified by the city secretary that he was going to have to register as a lobbyist. So that was way before the council meeting, and he continued to go from council member to council member. And so just to circumvent the lobbyist rules, and they're there for, you know, a reason. And if you're going to lobby or if you're going to engage in that kind of activity, you just have to follow the rules. And so it's nothing personal, and I just wanted to clarify that and make those points.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing I just want to clarify before
Yes,
the
ma'am.
commission, really, it's irrelevant how many people have actually registered as lobbyists before, at this point. We can only do what's brought to our attention. We can only enforce what is brought to us. In Mr. Patino's case, it was brought to our attention. We tried to inform him of the requirements if he didn't already know them, even though he was already a commissioner of this commission for 2 years. And so we took the extra effort to send him a courtesy to give him that notice that this would be required, which, like I said, was a courtesy.
Thank you, Ms. Castillo. I guess we can, if any member of the commission wishes to consult with counsel in executive session, that would be the time, would be right now, correct?
That's correct. It would have to be, if it's something that has to deal with seeking the advice of counsel regarding pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offer, or any matter in which the duty of the attorney, the governmental body has under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas, clearly conflicting with this chapter. So if there's something that you all need advice on regarding what you can and can't do to avoid being sued as a possible litigation, then that's something that we can discuss in the back.
Okay. Do any members of the commission wish to consult with counsel in executive session? Okay. So then I guess the consideration at this time is whether or not there will be any action taken with respect to the evidentiary hearing. Ms. Castillo, what would be the options here?
The options would be for you to find if there was a violation of the ethics code, specifically the clear violations that exist based on the evidence that was presented today. Is a violation of Section 502, persons required to register as lobbyists, as well as Section 504B, initial registration, and Section 505, quarterly activity reports. Those would be the sections that show clear violations. If you all find Mr. Patino to be having violated those. Additionally, this would be the opportunity for you all to consider that the purpose of the ethics code is for ethics to be complied with to its fullest extent, especially sending out the message to the public that you all follow the ethics code, and that if we expect every person who needs to abide by the ethics code to follow it, especially in this particular case where the evidence has shown that the acts of Mr. Patino were particularly egregious, specifically with the fact that he did lie at the council meeting as to him not having been paid, the fact that he knowingly and intentionally refused to register after being specifically informed of the requirement, not only by the city attorney's office, but as Mr. Patino stated, by the city secretary via phone call. And taking into consideration the fact that Mr. Patino was a former ethics commission member for 2 years. So this is something that I think should be taken into consideration in your all's deliberations.
And the standard to make such a finding is preponderance of the evidence?
That's correct.
which is more likely than not that it occurred, the
That's
violation
correct.
occurred, correct?
That's correct.
Any questions from anybody from the commission with respect to these issues?
No questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman, just in terms of the disciplinary action that we may take, what are our limitations?
Yes, if you all do make the finding that he did knowingly and intentionally commit violations of the ethics code, you would have to specify which ones. As I said, it should be section 502, section 504B, as well as section 505. The things that you could impose are listed in section 808F of the code, which is entitled Civil Sanctions for Ethics Code Violations. Section 3 is particularly, for this particular issue, regarding disqualification from contracting or lobbying, where you would have the authority to recommend to council that he be prohibited from entering into any contract with the city or prohibited from lobbying on behalf of clients before the city for a period not to exceed 3 years. You would also have the ability to impose under section 5 a civil fine of $500 maximum per day after any filing deadline that is imposed by section 5, which is this lobbyist section that we're referring to, for which the required statement has not been filed, as each one constitutes a separate offense. So essentially what you could do with that is you could impose a $500 fine per day that he was not in compliance with section 5. Which could, I mean, if you want to take into consideration the fact that the contract and the payment received and the first text message that was sent to Councilmember Bettis was on January 12th, and the fact that he received notice of the violation on May 13th, which was when he acknowledged receipt of the email that he possibly is a lobbyist and should register. And not to mention the fact that on May 17th, which was the actual council meeting, is when he clearly was lobbying for this particular entity and lied about the fact that he didn't receive payment. So like I said, taking those different dates into consideration, you could impose a $500 fine for each of those days. You could also, pursuant to section 8, you could issue a letter of reprimand. You could also do a referral for ethics training. Those would be the ones that would be applicable in this particular case in accordance with the code. Some other things that you all could do as well are administrative reimbursement fees, as the labor and resources for the city staff time that were expended to address this issue, being that it was so egregious, based on the hourly rates of city staff, you could, like I said, take that into consideration. You could also direct city staff to maintain the Ethics Commission finding that you all make today in the city's HR, Human Resources files. You could also direct city staff to send your all's finding to the HR departments of the taxing entities, which would be the county, the school districts, also the college. You could also make a finding that his actions in this particular matter constitute moral turpitude due to the deceptiveness, the lying, again, and the fact that he knowingly and intentionally refused to register. So if y'all have any questions, or if y'all have anything else that you all maybe would like to impose, those would be things that we could discuss.
Thank you, Ms. Customer. Do I hear a motion of any kind?
If I may, Mr. Chair, one thing that I would just like to recommend to you all, being that this is the opportunity to send a message to the public that the ethics code should be complied with to the fullest extent, I would recommend the highest punishment possible that you all could impose, just in order to deter future violations. If this is something that does happen, like I said, we knew about this one, we brought it to your attention. this is a perfect time to send a message out that this is not something that's gonna be tolerated by the city nor the Ethics Commission.
I'd like to make a motion for us to go into executive session so we can discuss this.
Can you, identify the reason for it, please?
In order to discuss, or to consult with the attorneys as well. And so we can make a determination on this.
If I could just let you know that if you do have a question about how to apply the ethics code and all that, I think those kind of legal questions we can discuss outside of executive session. I'm not saying that we can't go into executive session for legal consultation. Just keep in mind what it is that you want to ask the city attorney or the assistant city attorney. If it's something like, well, I'm not sure if I can apply this, or what the punishment is, or what the disposition of the case can be, or how I can apply it, I think we can answer it here. That's not necessarily something that needs, that's a legal kind of question that will affect the commission as a body, or something of that nature, or anything that's pending litigation or anything like that.
Whether or not
just so
there
you
would be
know.
the possibility of litigation.
Right, whether this would trigger litigation.
If you're concerned about something like that and you have a question like that, certainly that's something that we could discuss, but it's usually something that's pending litigation. I'm just telling you that I don't necessarily see anything here. I don't know what's in your mind or what your question is. I don't see anything here that would require executive session, in my opinion, just right now. And so I'm trying to guide you, if you think it's something that is related to something that we discussed, it's already pending litigation, something that you feel the commission has a legal question about what you're going to do that could affect you, not about how you're going to take action here today or how to interpret this code, because that's important. We don't really have much reason to go into executive session in this particular case. That doesn't mean that we don't have any conceivable reason, but Mr. Commissioner, just if you can keep that in mind, I can certainly probably address a lot of the questions, or Ms. Castellon can address a lot of the questions without going into executive session.
It seems to me we're tasked with two separate items, to make a motion on. One, the violations of section 502, 504, and 505. And then second, what type of penalty and fine we would apply. And so I just want to make sure that at this session, that's what, the second portion, that's when we apply it, after making the first determination, whether there was a violation, and the second portion is to apply the fines that you've mentioned earlier.
That's correct.
Okay.
First you would have to make a finding that there was a violation.
Correct.
Whether it was intentionally or knowingly, and then you would determine what the just remedy would be. And I listed out all of the things that would be relevant for you all to do in this particular case.
Mr. Chair, it's apparent to me, at least, that there has been a violation. Right. And that's the first thing that Mr. Chair, that I want to point out, that I do believe that there are violations occurred in 502, 503, and 505. The question then becomes, for me, in terms of meting out some type of disciplinary action, is that trigger where he knowingly and willfully disregarded the notice. That for me is what's has me concerned about how I go forward beyond this. But I think, for me, and I would make that motion, that that there was a violation of 502, 503, and 505.
I think it's 504B.
504, is it 504B?
504B, yes.
Sorry, 504B. Yes, 504B.
So your motion is that Mr. Patino did in fact violate
Did in fact violate.
5.02, 5.04B, and 5.05, correct?
Correct. But it was up to a point where he didn't necessarily know the ordinance, and of course, absence of knowledge of the law is not a defense. The statute stood. It was there for that purpose, to guide anyone who does business with the city as a lobbyist. that is advocating for a third party and not for your own contract or for your own business, but as a lobbyist. And so, irrespective of whether he knew or didn't know, there was a violation. That's my opinion. And so, if that needs to be formed in a form of a motion, then that's my motion, that I do believe that a violation occurred under those statutes, under those items within the ethics ordinance.
Do you mind adding to your motion and saying the fact that we instruct Mr. Patino to go back
I
and?
think we have to have the finding first, then.
Well-
It would be the finding
The
first.
finding first, right?
Mr.
The
Chairman,
finding first.
if I may just add a discussion to Mr. Benmatis, why don't we agree this? We're gonna bifurcate this. Let's just first have a finding.
Right.
Then we'll address
Right.
what, if any, issues will be taken at that time. And I think that'll give an opportunity to talk about mitigating damages, or when did this
Agreed.
happen, so.
Right.
If that's okay, Mr. Benmatis, to your motion.
I would, yes, I would accept it that way.
Okay.
So the motion on the table is, there's been a
That we find that there was a violation of the ethics ordinance.
5.02, 5.04B, and 5.05, correct?
That is correct.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there a second? Discussion, any questions concerning the motion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Against? All in favor, motion passes. Okay, so at this point, it's to address the sanction or punishment portion for the finding, correct?
Correct. However, in order to do that, you would need to make a finding that it was intentionally and knowingly, I believe.
What sections? Did they,
I'm sorry?
did they make the findings in the sections too?
When you all made your motion right now that violations occurred under section 502, 504, and 505, did you all make that finding also that it was intentionally and knowingly?
Yes.
You did? Okay,
Because
I'm
again,
sorry.
There was a point in time when he was told, register as a lobbyist, and he did not. And then he came back to the council and advocated for a third party, thus lobbying. And at that point, it triggered that, knowingly and willfully.
Okay, so then now that you have made that finding, now you can discuss the civil sanctions. And if there is something that you do all need clarification on what you all can and can't do to impose, specifically in that we can give legal advice to prevent litigation from occurring, that is something that we can go and discuss in executive session if y'all would like to.
Does anybody wish to go into executive session to discuss what Ms. Castillo just mentioned? If not, then we can discuss penalty. I think the options that have been mentioned are a letter of reprimand, a referral to ethics training, a fine, as Ms. Castillo mentioned, for daily fine from a date certain forward, some sort of prohibition of no lobbying with the city of Laredo. I think it's not to exceed 3 years if I'm not mistaken, and perhaps administrative reimbursement to the city of Laredo for the costs incurred because of this proceeding. At least those are some of the options. Oh, and also directing city staff to instruct HR about the finding found by this commission with respect to any future employment with the city of Laredo and or to any other entities such as school districts or the county. I think I've got them all. Is that right, Ms. Castillo? Is that pretty much it?
I believe so. I don't think you'd have to anything out. I'm not sure if you included the moral turpitude, a finding of moral turpitude in
I
there.
did not include that one. That's another one. Does anybody wish to discuss it or do I have a motion?
Let me make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we send Mr. Patino for training and that we disregard everything else and let this man continue and see if he can be successful in this business and be a productive citizen.
Okay, there's a motion to have Mr. Patino sent to
Go to the training.
training for ethics. Is there a second? There's no second?
There's a second, Mr.
Okay,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Benitez, your second?
I'll second that, but I would like to add to that if I could.
To amend the
if
motion? To amend the motion?
if Commissioner Zapata would allow me, I do believe that there should be a letter of reprimand. At the very least, just some document that said, more than these proceedings, that this occurred. And that's it. But I think that we need to document that, at the very least. The referral to ethics training, I think, will open the door for him to understand how to do business with the city. I think there'll be some things that good will come out of this for those who want to engage with the city. And I also believe that he'll benefit from the training. And the letter of reprimand just stands as notice. So that in the future, those who witness what happened here today would avoid doing this and causing the city all the things that we're currently going through in terms of the expense. But at least at the very minimum, I know that in my own employ, with my staff members, at the very minimum, there's something in their file jacket that we've agreed that there was a violation and that it stands in their record.
Mr. Chairman, I accept that amendment to my motion.
Okay, so then the motion on the table is to refer Mr. Patino to ethics training, as well as have a issuance of a letter of reprimand for his conduct.
Well, could I just add to that? Generally, or just my humble opinion, whenever there is a finding, you want it to be, you look at education, you look at sending a message, right? You also look, are we trying to be punitive? It sounds like these are very wise decisions and very strong educational. We're gonna put this. How about there is a fine of $500, but it'll be waived upon completion of this. That's it. In other words, if you do not go to the classes, you will be having to pay a fine, you will be prohibited. But if you attend, all is well. I like those type of orders. You could choose whichever route you want to go. I didn't learn anything from you guys. I don't care. Okay, fine. There are the consequences. I do want to work with you guys. This is what I'm interested in. I think it sends a very good message to everybody here that we do want compliance. It is about compliance. And that, at the end of the day, if we got the highest fine, but we don't have compliance, I don't think we succeeded. So that's just my humble opinion, if I can add that to the gentleman's motion.
It's the onus on me. I agree.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll further amend my motion to include the $500 fine if Mr. Patino doesn't comply with the training.
And my second is amended.
Okay. So that's the motion that's on the table. Any further comment, questions?
No.
Timeline.
I'm sorry?
Timeline.
To complete the ethics training.
How long?
It's typically what they can, it can be completed relatively quickly. There's an online course there, it's available. It's not a difficult process. 60 days?
County enforcement.
60 days, amended at 60 days.
Yes.
Are you okay with that, Mr.?
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Now, do we have, no, one question, do we have the authority to be able to ask Mr. Patino to continue, I mean, if he's gonna continue with this, to register as soon as possible as a lobbyist? Or is that something that's gonna come up again later on if he continues to lobby without being registered? And we're gonna be back here again
Here's my-
uh,
for one.
Here's my question, on the ethics violation, I think it had to do with the contract that was presented today, so I'm not sure, but it seems from the affidavit that within that contract he's lobbying for, with that company, he has been terminated. And he has been,
terminated.
yeah, I believe so, correct? Yeah, and,
And any future contracts he may take on, he would have
Yeah, this
to
is true.
engage
Correct.
as register as a lobbyist before engaging the cities. So,
Correct. He would have to register, however, I wouldn't recommend that be something that you all do. I would recommend that you all do follow at the very least, Section 3, which is a disqualification from contracting or lobbying with the city. Just because of the egregiousness of this, but that would just be my recommendation.
duly noted.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, wish to further amend? Okay, well, the motion's on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against.
There's only against, okay. Motion passes. The next item is executive session, there's no need for that. Now adjournment, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, sir.
Okay, there's a motion to adjourn, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes, both meetings adjourned.
Guys?